What is your take on the newly revamped Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple pieces to it. There's the first, which is like the attempt to sign Micah and the way it was handled, and obviously there's a lot to criticize there. I think like if they had done this more aggressively at the beginning of the off season or even in 2024, I think they're better off, and they've obviously been reluctant to do those sorts of things in the recent past, right? Like they haven't done it with CeeDee Lamb. They didn't do it with Dak Prescott. They didn't do it with, Zeke Elliott had to go to the mat with them to get a new deal after 3 years. So there's plenty of criticism besides them for there. The one thing I do respect is that when things didn't work out in April with that phase of the negotiation, right, that they reset and basically said, like, all right, like, let's look at this big picture and let's see where we're going. And, what they're looking out at is, an organization that's won at a pretty consistent level over the last 20 years, but hasn't gotten over the top. And, I think there was a lot of soul searching and a lot of looking in the mirror. Jerry has never traded a star like this. Going back, like Herschel Walker was the last one in his first year as owner. That doesn't happen. He doesn't trade stars away. But what they made the conscious decision to do is, like, if we do trade him, like, it may be time to reimagine everything and to look at, like, maybe we need to bring in a different type of guy. And I think Kenny Clark is sort of indicative of all of that, right? Like, that's who they asked for, and it wasn't just because Kenny Clark's a great player. He's a really good player. There's no question about that. It was more like Kenny Clark's a grown-up, and Kenny Clark is a leader, and we know what we're going to get from Kenny Clark. And Kenny Clark can help us build what Brian Schottenheimer is looking to build here. So, on one hand, the negotiation, I think there's plenty of room for criticism. On the other, I do kind of respect the swing that they're taking here to try to change the dynamic a little bit in Dallas after so many years of having good but not great teams.
So what does this do for the Green Bay Packers? We had our opinion about the Packers before this trade. Now, how do you look at them in the NFC North?
Yeah, well, I just mentioned the whole thing about good and great, right?
Yeah.
I think that the thing with the Packers is they've been sort of in that area where they've got so many good players, right? They've got a lot of like good to very good players. You go down the list, like, the receiver room, Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed, and, Christian Watson when he's back off of injury, Romeo Dobbs. They draft Matthew Gold, Tucker Kraft at tight end, Luke Musgrave over there, Rasheed Walker at tackle, Van Ness and Rashawn Gary and Devontae White. These are all guys you'd want on your team. Xavier McKinney, Edgerrin Cooper, like these are all guys you'd want on your team. The question that they were asking a lot of when I was at their camp, and I know that they've been asking a lot of themselves this offseason, is like are any of these guys going to evolve into true difference makers, like true game changers? And what they get in bringing Micah Parsons in is a guy who is a ready-made game changing type of player. And we'll see like how he fits into Jeff Hafley's scheme, but I think they feel like he's a really good fit for that scheme too, because it's an attacking upfield scheme that's going to kind of turn him loose a little bit. And they feel like they can kind of get through to him and make him a better teammate just by virtue of the locker room they have. So, I think that's the whole idea here is, all right, like we've been pretty good. Now let's see if we can go be great.
In terms of every year or almost every year, we see the runner-up in a conference title game take a step back the next year. Not every year, but we've seen it significantly. The Washington Commanders came out of nowhere, had great quarterback play. Dan Quinn was on a lot of Coach of the Year ballots. Do you think the Commanders are legit, or I could see them taking a step back? I'm not saying horrible, but take a step back.
Yeah, it's interesting, Cap. I think that I think this is maybe like a little bit of a tread water year from a record standpoint for them, where like I can see the record being worse and them not getting as far in the playoffs and still having a better team. Does that make sense? Like
Yep.
The NFC East has got a tough draw this year. The NFC East plays the NFC North, which you guys know how tough that division is, and the AFC West. And, I think if you look at where they are, they're better in a lot of areas. Like, their tackles should be better. They brought in Laramie Tunsil and drafted Josh Connerly. Their receiver group should be better with Deebo Samuel joining Terry McLaurin. Jaden Daniels, you would think he would take another step in year 2. They feel like they've improved in a lot of spots on the roster. Corner is a big one, right? Like, Marshawn Lattimore's healthy again. They bring in Trey Amos from Ole Miss, who will start for them. But they feel like they've gotten better in a lot of areas. It's just like, will all the things that went right last year, all the things that broke their way last year, break their way again? History tells us that won't happen, So I could see them being a better team this year with a worse record that doesn't go as far in the playoffs. But I think they've got the right people in place, so that doesn't lessen anything that I think about where they're at. It's just, a lot of things had to happen for them to get where they got last year. And I'm not saying last year was all about luck, but they did have some fairy dust there, and it's tough to count on that 2 years in a row. So I think it'll be a really, really good team, really, really competitive team. I think it's a tough ask for them to go back to the NFC title game.
I love the nugget on SI.com about what we watched in week 1 of college football. Nussmeier, the quarterback at LSU, head and shoulders above all the other prospective first-round quarterbacks for week 1. Not Max Johnson from North Carolina, huh?
Yeah. How about that? That was something else. I mean, that third quarter last night, man, like, that was some bad news Bears stuff. Watching that, watching what North Carolina looked like. I probably dated myself with that reference there, but I like, honestly, like, I think that there are a handful of guys that are in that category, and everybody wants to throw Arch in there, and I think Arch will be fine. I think ultimately it's not on him that, like, this hype got to the point that it did. It's on all of us.
True Fan Travel and ESPN Chicago are teaming up for the ultimate fan getaway to Sin City to see the Bears take on the Raiders in Las Vegas.
You get round-trip airfare, 3-night stay at Mandalay Bay, special live broadcasts and meet and greets with the full ESPN Chicago team, all-inclusive tailgate, tickets to Bears, Raiders, and more to come.
Spots are limited, so don't wait. Reserve your spot today at truefantravel.com. Back to you on the video.
But I think there are a handful of guys that have a chance to play their way, into the upper reaches of the first round. And I think you're right. Like, Hoodie, like, round 1 goes to Garrett Nussmeier, who played really well against Clemson. But the other quarterback in that game's got a chance too, Cade Klubnik, who's started a lot of games there. And I think Scott, like, a good talent, got a good baseline of talent. Lenora Sellers from South Carolina really turned it on at the end of that game. There's a little bit of a lull in the middle, but, like, you can see the ability with him. So, like, those 3 guys, and then Drew Aller, at Penn State is another one that's got a boatload of talent. We'll see where it goes, So I think, like, this year you've got, like, a number of guys where it's like, okay, like, there's some real talent there, and now we're going to get to see what they do with it. And, who's going to be able to elevate. Like, I don't know if there's, like, someone like Caleb and Drake May, like, 2 years ago, we're like, yes, those 2 guys are both going in the top 5, right? And then Jaden Daniels, over the course of the year, played his way into that group, right? I think, like, what you have more is more cases like Jaden this year and less cases like Drake and Caleb, where there's no sure things, but some of these guys are going to be working to get themselves up into that top echelon.
Shay, for week 1 in college football, Albert says Nussmeier. Do you have someone on the same level? Who's the best quarterback you saw in week 1?
Probably Nuss by default. I thought everybody was kind of underwhelming. I know that's not a good answer, but quarterback play week 1 was as bad as I can remember. Mm-hmm. And, like, Lenora Sellers turned it on at the end. You're right, Bert. Like, the end of that game speaks more than the start, and Virginia Tech might be a really good defense, but quarterback play was pretty rough across the board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's interesting is, like, so one of the other shows I do, I don't really bet much. I haven't bet much since college. Like, for the most part, like, we aren't allowed to bet, like, on the NFL, so I just don't bet on anything, right? Like, but I was on a show last week, and I'm like, they asked me what I thought was going to happen with Ohio State and Texas, and I said said, I think it's going to be a freaking rock fight. Everybody's marked like, and I told them I think it's going to be 14-10 either way. So I guess that was pretty close, right?
Wow.
And so they started screaming at the top of their lungs, like, bet the under, bet the under, bet the under. I'm like, I don't know if that's what you want to do. That's fine. It's just the sort of game I think it's going to be. But I heard, but that was based on stuff I heard from scouts who'd been through both schools who said, like, the defense is absolutely obliterating the offense in practice, And so, look, I think, in a lot of these cases, you've got quarterbacks who are going up against really, like really talented defenses, right? Like now we'll see with Sellers against Virginia Tech, but and obviously, Aller had a little bit of a layup there in week 1. They played Nevada, is that right?
Yes.
Penn State.
Yes.
But I mean, Nussmeier and Klubnik, like they had to go up against defenses against each other's defenses, and there are first-round picks all over the place, right? Like so. That's a factor. Same goes for Arch. Like, I mean, that Ohio State defense is got, I would say, a handful of first-round picks on it. Maybe the best defensive player in college football, in Caleb Downs, and then a Super Bowl winning coordinator, and you don't have any tape on him. You know what I mean? Like, what did people think was going to happen? I don't know. So I think we got to give these kids some grace, especially the ones who are playing these these marquee matchups in week 1. Like that's a tough go. I think for any college quarterback, these guys don't have preseason games the way the pros do.
Albert, have a great week. We'll be watching you on Thursday, and we're just loving that football's back and we get to be with you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
See you. Albert